In this video, I'm going to tell you how to deal with a DUI traffic stop step by step. Hi, I'm Javiar Alatorre, owner-director of Alatorre Law. I'm a criminal defense and trial attorney here in Tucson, Arizona, and I help people fight for their freedom and protect their future. Let's get on with the video. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a standard DUI stop. There's several steps or several phases to a DUI investigation that the cops actually follow. So I'm going to take you one step at a time or one phase at a time. But before we do, here's a little bit of disclaimer. Remember, it's not cool to drive drunk. It's not cool to drive impaired. Nobody wants you driving impaired, right? Now, that said, let's get on with the video. The main objective on a DUI stop is to end it as soon as possible so you can go home. So a key thing is be respectful, be polite, and shut the fuck up. Those are the main issues, right? You don't want to piss the guy off. You don't want to give him a reason or motivate him to mess with you, right? And of course, you don't want to talk too much because talking too much can get you into trouble. So the first phase of the investigation is a stop. So cops are basically, on the street, on the road, in their car, in their vehicle. And there are actually cops that are in what they call like a DUI task force or something. So they are looking to enforce the impaired driving laws, which is a completely valid thing to do, right? We don't want any people getting hurt. And so they're maybe parked on the side of the road, checking on vehicles. They're looking for cues of impairment. How? Well, the whole investigation is based on cues of impairment. And the first part of it is the first contact, right? The first when they see you drive by. So there's a bunch of things that they look for, but basically bad driving, weaving, bad turns, stuff like that. Stopping and going too slow. Speeding is not a cue of impairment. Everybody speeds, right? So that's not sufficient for them to suspect you of DUI, but it is enough for them to stop you, right? But anyway, they're looking for signs and symptoms of potential impairment. So a car driving without its lights on, wide turns or improper turns, stuff like that. That's what they're looking for, right? But eventually the cop, before he stops you, he has to have reasonable suspicion to stop you. He has to have a basis, right? An articulable basis for the stop. He has to have a reasonable basis to believe that you're committing some kind of violation, whether it's a traffic violation or you're committing a crime, right? Now, remember, he doesn't have to have enough information that you're guilty of a crime, just reasonable suspicion, right? Enough information, a reasonable, articulable suspicion that you're committing or you're about to commit a crime. The classic, they stop you for some kind of moving violation, right? So you get stopped for a moving violation. So then the cop starts following you and then lights you up and stops you, right? The way you react to the stop will also be taken into account. So if you're too slow to react to the cop telling you to stop, if you stop in the wrong place, in a place where you're not supposed to, stuff like that, he's going to write that down as another cue of intoxication, right? I did once a list of all the cues that they have from the moment they see you to the moment they arrest you. I think it was like over 80. And you don't have to have 80, you just have a few, right? It really doesn't matter. They're just looking for a reason to stop you and then to investigate. So let's say you're driving the road, you're kind of weaving within or between the lanes, so they stop you. Okay, so you get stopped. Let's assume there's reasonable suspicion for the stop. Maybe you were speeding or, you did an improper turn or something like that. So you're already going to get a ticket, right? So then what happens? Well, the cop is going to come up to your door. And of course, that's the initial contact part of the investigation. So your appearance is very important. So this is a classic in every report I've seen, probably red, watery, bloodshot eyes. I think that's part of like the template at this point. I don't know, because I've had several cases where the cop says my client had red, watery, bloodshot eyes, and they actually took a picture of him or her during the investigation, and you see his eyes, and they're completely white. I actually asked one of them, it's like, well, that's him right on the night, right? Yeah. No watery red bloodshot eyes, right? No. Why? Well, the camera is not good. Or no, it was before that. Or it was after that. You'll have an excuse, right? So that's one thing. And then, of course, odor of intoxicants is another thing they look, because they're at the window, they're talking to you, say, oh, a smell of intoxicants coming from the vehicle. It's intoxicants because if they say alcohol, there's a problem. Actual alcohol, ethanol, has no smell. So whatever they're smelling is the actual drink that contained some alcohol in it, right? So that was that odor of intoxicants. I can never explain it. I had a cop once explain it as it was a fruity smell. The judge wouldn't dismiss it anyway. So a fruity smell, Your Honor, really? So my client had a shot of orange juice, that's enough for probable cause. Judge didn't care. But anyway, that's basically it, right? So it's the smell, and then he's going to start asking you questions. So what are the rules here? Well, during the stop, during the initial contact, by the time he gets to you, you should have your paperwork ready. I usually keep my stuff ready in the center console. I just have it clipped together, proof of insurance, registration, and your driver's license. They sell things also that you can put on your visor or whatever. Just have it somewhere handy, because if you take too long to find these, if you take too long to produce your documents, they might say that you're having problems complying with instructions or with the directions, and that might be a cue of intoxication or a cue of impairment, right? So you want to make sure that your presentation is good. So have your paperwork ready. As soon as he comes, just give it to the guy. Some people play games. My advice is don't play games, right? Just provide the paperwork. You got to identify yourself, okay? So by giving him your paperwork, you've identified yourself. You've done what you have to do. Now, chit-chat. The cops are going to start asking you questions. Now, he's going to be asking you questions, especially if he suspects you of DUI or if he's in the DUI task force. He's going to ask you the DUI questions, right? So what's he going to ask you? Well, where you're coming from, where you're going, what are you doing? Did you have anything to drink tonight? Stuff like that, right? So you don't have to answer those questions. You can respectfully decline. So just when the officer comes, give him your paperwork. Say, hello, officer. Good evening. Here you go, sir. Do you know why I stopped you? No, I don't. Because you don't. You can imagine. Don't confess to speeding, please, okay? Don't confess to being drunk, right? I mean, if you are drunk, probably best not to drive instead of confessing, right? You shouldn't be driving if you're drunk. But you don't have to answer these questions, okay? So the best thing is don't. Be respectful, be polite, give him your paperwork, and respectfully decline to answer questions. So if he asks, hey, what are you doing? Where are you coming from? That respectfully, I decline to answer questions, officer. How can I help you, sir? Why did you stop me, sir? Stuff like that. Keep it friendly, keep it respectful, but keep it professional. I don't have to answer these questions. I'm not going to answer your questions, officer. How can I help you? What's the reason? Oh, yeah. Oh, I was speeding. Okay, please. Yeah, okay. Give me the ticket so I can go on my way. That's it. Be respectful. Don't fight. Do not fight. Remember, the cop has a gun. The cop has the power of the state behind him, okay? He has all the power of the state behind him. You're not going to win a fight with a cop on the street. We can win it in court, okay? But not on the street. On the street, you're going to lose that fight, no matter what you do, okay? So be respectful, be polite, shut the fuck up. He's going to start probing you, where you're coming from, where you're going. You don't have to answer that. Just respectfully decline. Provide your documents. Have you had anything to drink tonight? Any question he asks, just say, I respectfully decline to answer questions, officer. Am I free to leave? So he's going to also ask you some divided attention questions or tasks. Like he's going to ask you for your paperwork, and then he asks you for another thing as you're getting something or other. Because they want to see how you react to divided attention to multiple tasks at the same time. So don't get confused. Don't freak out. Just if he asks you for your license, give him your license. If he asks you something else while you're doing that, finish giving him your license, and then said, what is the other thing you asked, officer? Oh, yeah, I can get you that too. Just be calm about it. Take your time. If you fumble with your paperwork, that's also a cue. So that's why I always recommend to have your paperwork ready, right? Because they say your lack of dexterity is another cue, right? Anyway, so you don't have to answer questions. But remember, do not lie. Never lie to a cop. Lying to a cop can be considered a crime as well. So don't lie. Remember, you don't have to answer anything, so just don't. Respectfully decline to ask questions and move on. If he wants to continue asking questions, you can always say, officer, I respectfully decline to answer questions, as I've told you before. Am I free to leave, sir? No. If I'm not free to leave, then I would like to speak to an attorney before I answer any more questions, officer. Thank you very much. And shut the fuck up. That's it. Remember, you say the word attorney, that actually kicks in a bunch of constitutional rights, okay? So say it. Don't fight. Don't argue with the officer. Do not try to talk your way out of the stop. You will not. You will never talk your way out of an arrest. But you can't talk yourself into one. So be careful, okay? So just keep it professional. Keep it simple. My paperwork, my ticket, go my way. That's it, okay? Now, the officer might ask you, if he's doing a DUI investigation, he might ask you to step out of the vehicle. Do you have to do it? Yes, you do. So make sure you put all your stuff away before you step out of the vehicle. Why? Because if you open the door, something falls out, oh, you're drunk because you don't know where your stuff is. You're dropping everything, right? So just put your stuff on the side, take off your seatbelt, get out of the vehicle. Now, he's going to be looking at exactly how you get out of that vehicle, because if you have balance issues or whatever, he's going to write down his report as another cue of intoxication, a cue of impairment, right? Oh, he can't walk straight, he can't stand straight, he's got this sway or whatever. He's going to do all those things. So you need to be very, very, very careful how you get out, put your stuff away, and get out of the vehicle. You do have to. They also look if you're pushing yourself off the vehicle, or if you're kind of holding on the vehicle to keep your balance and stuff like that. So be careful, be respectful, polite, be careful how you get out, right? And make sure you don't drop your stuff, okay? So you do have to get out, and he'll tell you to go somewhere, and you have to comply. That said, he's going to start asking you to do field sobriety tests. You don't have to do those. You can respectfully decline. He's not going to ask you. He's going to write in. He's just going to jump into it. Stand over here and say, okay, I'm going to check your eyes because I want to make sure you're all right to drive, blah, 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 blah. Everybody falls for it, okay? So don't feel bad. But you can always say, no, officer, I respectfully decline to participate in these field sobriety tests. Am I free to leave, sir? No, you're not. Okay, thank you, sir. Then I respectfully decline to answer questions until I have a lawyer present, sir. May I sit down? How do you want me to wait for you to do your investigation? Remember, you don't want to give him an excuse to say that he has concerns of officer safety, because if he has officer safety concerns, you're going to end up in the back of his patrol car in cuffs. And he's going to say you're not under arrest. He's going to say he's tying you up and putting you in a cage for his safety. The less reasons you give him to be concerned about his well-being and his safety, the better. Right? So be respectful, be calm, do not argue with him. Again, do not try to talk yourself out of it, because you won't. So, field sobriety test, HGN, he's going to try and check your eyes. You can decline, walk and turn, walk on the line, turn around, blah, blah, blah. You can decline. One leg stand, you can decline. Officers will also ask you to blow on a portable breathalyzer, on a PBT or a preliminary breathalyzer. It's a little handheld thing with a little straw. You've seen those, I'm sure. So he's going to ask you to blow on it. You don't have to. So please, don't blow, okay? That little handheld thing, it's not admissible for quantification at trial. It's not admissible for the number it spits out. The only thing they're doing is they want to confirm that there's alcohol in your system. So if you blow on it, whatever number comes out, even if it's like a 0.2, 0.02, 0.03, like if it's below the legal limit, the 0.08, they're still going to use it because, positive for alcohol. It's an unreliable device for numbers, so we don't care about the number. We just care if it's positive, they're going to say. But if it's above 0.08, they'll write it down. I've seen very, very interesting. When it's below 0.08, on the documentation, they just say PBT positive for alcohol. But when it's above 0.08 or higher, they'll write the number, right? So it's only relevant when it's good for them. It's not relevant when it's not good for them, right? Remember, it doesn't matter what you blow. If you have alcohol in your system, that's all they're going to need. So you don't have to blow on that. So all you have to be is respectful and decline. One thing I got to tell you, if you refuse field sobriety test and you end up in court at trial, they will tell the jury you refused, okay? They will say, well, I asked him to do these things, but he wouldn't do them. They're going to try and insinuate that that's like an admission of guilt. Fuck that, it's not. I couldn't do those field sobriety tests if my life depended on them. Right? I mean, sober, stone cold sober, after 4 cups of coffee, I can't do those. I got bad knees, bad ankles, I'm old. I can't do those. So, and remember, those tests don't test your impairment. They don't even test your ability to drive. They test your balance, they test your coordination. It's completely different. You can fail all those tests and still not have any alcohol or any drugs in your system. You don't have to do those. It's your choice if you do those. I don't think there's a lot of benefit for you to get those. I mean, if you think you're going to get 100% of them, but maybe. But remember, they're not graded on pass or fail. They're graded on degrees of failure. They only count the things you did wrong. The things you did right, they don't count. So just remember that, right? And then you only need 1 or 2 of those to actually say, I have probable cause. Why put yourself in that position, right? You don't have to. So it's up to you. If you want to do them, you don't have to. So that's on the field sobriety test and on the step out of the vehicle. Next step. The arrest. Eventually, the cop is going to arrest you or let you go. If he lets you go, good. You're done. Go home, get some rest. If he doesn't let you go, he puts you under arrest, things change a little bit. Once you're under arrest, the implied consent statute applies. That means everybody that drives in the state of Arizona has given implied consent to a test of their bodily fluids to determine if they have alcohol or some kind of drugs, if they're driving impaired. If you refuse a request for a test, whether it's breath or blood, after an arrest, that refusal alone will get your driver's license suspended for 12 months. And what's going to happen then is they're going to go get a warrant. They have these e-warrants now. They go on a computer, they just submit some stuff, and they submit it, and some judge in Phoenix issues a warrant, and they get it back, and boom, and they'll draw the blood anyway. And if you don't cooperate, they'll tie you down and take it by force. So my advice is, once you're under arrest, make sure you're under arrest first. Once you're under arrest, it's probably best for you to just comply with the draw, because that's going to be a 90-day suspension at most. So we can get those, sometimes we can actually get those dropped or voided after the arrest, okay? Especially if you win your DUI. It just depends on a lot of things, but 90 days is a lot easier to deal with than the 12 months, okay? So it's up to you again. I don't think there's a lot of benefit in refusing the draw or the breath after you're under arrest, but it's up to you. Okay, I've only seen it work once in over 15 years. I've only seen it work once. The guy refused. I was a prosecutor at that point, and the guy refused, and my cop just didn't want to force it. He didn't want to tie him down and take it by force. He's like, I didn't feel comfortable doing it, he said. I just couldn't do it because the guy was being very belligerent. He said, I'm going to end up hurting him, and I just don't want the hassle, right? So the cop was being nice, and he's just like, yeah, I don't want to hurt this guy, so I'm just not going to do it. So he didn't do it. It's the only time I've seen it in over 15 years of practice here in Arizona that I've seen it work. I've seen many body cams of clients of mine getting tied up, gagged, and forcibly drawn the blood. It's not a pretty sight. It looks like some kind of torture situation. It's pretty bad, man, because they're poking you over and over until they find a vein to get the blood. And since you're tied and you're kind of resisting, it's harder for them to do it. So it's painful, man. So it's up to you. The best advice I can give you is once you're under arrest, probably best to just comply with the draw. And then afterwards, you hire me and we fight it. We fight it on the back end. You don't want to fight it on the side of the road. Remember that. You're going to lose that fight 100% of the time. So then let's say he asks you for breath. What happens? Well, they'll have it's not going to be that little handheld one. It's a big box, about yay big like this. It's a gray box with a hose that you blow on it. It's called the Intoxilizer, the 8,000 or the 9,000. I'll show you a picture right here. So they'll use one of those and you have to blow on it. You have to wait a deprivation period, like 15 minutes before you start blowing. They have to make sure you don't put anything in your mouth. Then you blow, and then you wait a certain amount of time, and then you blow again, and the machine actually times you and all that, right? So you blow twice because they need a duplicate sample. And the samples need to match within a certain range of each other, right? So they'll do all that, and then the machine will spit out a printout of your BAC. And if you're above 0.08, you're going to get some charges. You're going to have to go to court and all that. If you're below 0.08, they can still charge you. They can still give you a ticket, and you can still go to court even though you're below the legal limit. Because remember, 0.08 is one way to commit a DUI, 0.08 or higher, but also being impaired to the slightest degree by the consumption of alcohol, drugs, or some kind of other intoxicant. If you're driving impaired by the consumption of some intoxicant, that's enough, even if you're below 0.08. Even if it's alcohol, if you're 0.05, I've had cases where my clients get prosecuted for 0.05, 0.06, 0.07. It's rarely that they really don't win those. I mean, not unless they get really, really lucky or there's something really bad. I've never lost one of those, but I've had very few of those as well, right? So it's just one of those things, right? But they can still charge you. So, and once you get charged, you'll get if you were nice, most of the time they'll just release you, cite you and release you, and you go home. You'll probably have to get an Uber or some kind of ride or call somebody to pick you up. Maybe they'll tow your car or not. It just depends. Now, let's say it's blood. So when they ask for blood and you say, okay, yes, I'll give you blood, they can either do it right then and there. Some cops have like a little foldable chair there. They sit you down inside the road and they take it right then and there. Others take you to Others will take you to a substation where they have like a phlebotomy chair or whatever. They'll do the blood draw there. Remember, the cops, they claim to be phlebotomists. They are not phlebotomists. They are what they call themselves qualified phlebotomists. So basically, they're not an actual phlebotomist. They're just a cop that took like a week-long course or whatever. And then the state said, okay, now you can draw blood. Because they only get taught how to draw blood from the arms, nothing else. Phlebotomists get more training and stuff. It's a very short course in preparation, and they do have to get a certain number of draws, right? But they're not actual phlebotomists. They're just qualified phlebotomists, right? Whatever that means, right? So anyway, so they'll draw the blood, right? They'll draw 2 vials. One of the vials will be tested. The other vial will be available if you want to test it. You have to talk to your lawyer if you want to test that vial. And then when they do all the paperwork, whatever, they'll sign and release you, and you go on your way. If you were nice, they'll do the blood draw. They'll put everything in a box, do a bunch of paperwork, and eventually they'll let you go, and you go home. So one caveat here, though. Depending on the jurisdiction, on like the police department or whatever, or the actual court where you're going to go, you may or may not get a ticket that time. Some jurisdictions wait until the blood work comes back before filing charges. Others just give you the charge and then they wait that they can add charges or whatever depending on your BAC or whatnot, right? But you're probably going to get an amendment per se, which is your driver's license suspension, 12 months or 90 days depending on what, and then they'll release you. If you're belligerent, if you're combative, I've seen a lot of clients of mine that were doing fine. They should have been set and released, but because they gave the cop a lot of sass, a lot of trouble, and they were being aggressive, they got themselves a ticket for a night in jail. So be respectful, be polite, shut the fuck up. Okay? So summary, the stop. When you get stopped, stop carefully, stop appropriately, use your blinkers to stop when you get stopped by the cop, and park in a proper, safe place in a safe manner, okay? Don't take too long, but don't do it too fast either. Just try to do it the best you can. When the cop comes and talks to you, you don't have to answer questions, but you do have to identify yourself. You do have to provide your documents. You should. And after that, you don't have to answer any more questions. So don't. If he asks you to get out of the car, you have to, but you don't have to do field sobriety tests. If he asks you to blow on a PBT, on a little handheld, you don't have to either. It's probably best if you don't. After you're under arrest, then if you refuse a blood draw or a breath test, you will be suspended for 12 months. Once you provide the sample, whether it's breath or blood, they'll do some paperwork and they'll release you. They may or may not tow your car, but you're going to have to get a ride. They won't let you drive away. And that's it. That's my step-by-step analysis of a DUI investigation. I hope this video has been helpful for you. And if you or anybody you care about is facing criminal charges in Arizona, feel free to give me a call. I have a description below. You'll find all my contact information. And we have operators standing by 24/7 to take your information and set you up for a free case evaluation. Give us a call. We'll talk. We'll see if we can help you out. And hopefully we can. And see you on the next video.